Hello, it is 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines, we have the Minister of Economy visits the region cement factory in Al Sabih. Vast international net against organized crimes at cyber police operation. Welcome to our newsroom. The Minister of Economy continues his visit after his visit to the Economic Development Fund, an institution under his supervision. Move to revitalize this institution direction Ali Sabir yesterday morning, accompanied by his staff, but also the prefect and the president of the regional council. IMD visit the Musa Dawale visit the cement factory in the region. Upon his arrival, the Minister of Finance was welcomed with a great pomp by senior officials and employees. The visit began with the planting of trees, illustrating a vision that is not only economic but also respectful of the environment. The entire delegation was invited to plant a tree. The minister was first and the delegation followed this beautiful symbolic planting. During the visit, the minister and the delegation went through the different phases of this gigantic industrial complex. Following this busy day, the Minister of Economy and Finance, Ilyas Musa Dawale, met with the region's wise men, including traditional chiefs and religious leaders, as well as the factory staff. The aim of this meeting was to listen to the concern of Asajok population. The ladders were very enthusiastic about the arrivals of the high officials of the state in their localities and welcomed the minister as worthy sons of the soils with poetic words of welcome. Speaking to the national press, the minister said he was moved by a feeling of joy and pride at having visited this jewel. The pride, he said, to have this great industrial unit in our country and which has nothing to envy to the great cement manufacturers of the world. The minister further stressed that the Ali Sabih regional cement factory is the first heavy industry in the country. He added that it represents 200 direct jobs and more than 250 indirect jobs. The Minister of Interior, Saeed Nuh Hassan, as part of his first contact meeting, visited the National Office for Assistance to Refugee and Disaster Victims, known as ONARS. On his arrival, the minister was welcomed by the executive secretary and was given tours of the premises, the mission of this institution, but also its prospects. That then at peak 13, the Minister of Interior, always accompanied by the executive secretary, visited the headquarters and several buildings, as well as a large shed where food and non-food items are stored, which are indispensable at all times to relieve the refugee and disaster-stricken population in our country. Founded in January 1979, the National Office for Assistance to Refugee and Disaster Victims has more than 40 years of good and loyal service in implementing migration policy, especially in receiving and caring for refugee and disaster victims. His Excellency Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud is currently on missions in Doha, where he has just taken part in the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding on the project entitled Strengthening Learning Opportunities between the MENFOB and the State of Qatar Fund for Development through the partnership with the Foundation Education Above All. During his speech, the minister expressed his department's determination to implement all the necessary means so that every child living on the national territory benefits from inclusive quality education. In this regard, after expressing his warm thanks to the State of Qatar, His Excellency Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud stressed that this partnership with education above all was of great importance because of the mobility of the objectives jointly pursued, namely the achievement of universal education, thus guaranteeing the right of all children to quality education. He said, "We remain deeply convinced that quality primary education can change the courses of a child's life, just as we believe that giving a child a quality education is giving him or her the opportunities for a better future." The Minister of Women and Family, Muna Usman Aden, received today, Monday, June 7, 2021, in his cabinet, the Ambassador of France in Djibouti, Mr. Arnaud Guillois. The visit of the French diplomat is part of the contact of the members of the new government for the continuity of the work is already starting and the expansion of ways and means of their respective partnerships. The meeting was attended by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Women and Family, Anissa Hassan Bahdoun. Also, as part of her assumptions of offices, the Minister of Women and Family, Muna Usman Aden, then received today, Monday, 7 June, in her cabinet, the coordinator of the United Nations system, Barbara Manzi. The Secretary General of the Ministry of Women and Family, Anissa Hassan Bahdoun, was also present at the meeting. After the presentation of congratulations to her reappointment to the posts of ministers in a new portfolio, the UN system coordinator said that this courtesy visit is part of the collaboration between the Ministry of Women and Family and the UN system. On 7 June, the Minister of Social Affairs, Solidarity, surrounded by her closest collaborator, UNICEF resident representative Melva Johnson, after a message of welcome and thanks from both sides, the Minister of Social Affairs, Solidarity, Ms. Ulufa Ismail Abdo, expressed her willingness to continue on the path started by her predecessor. The UN officials, Ms. Melva Johnson, having recognized Djibouti's social protection system as the most advanced in the region, affirmed that UNICEF will continue to support the Minister of Solidarity in achieving its ambitions. At the end of the meeting, the Secretary General of the Minister, Ms. Ifrah Ali, did not fail to thank the UNICEF representative in Djibouti for the continuous support that UNICEF provides to the various programs aimed at consolidating the social welfare of the population. The Minister of Labor in charge of formalization social protection, Isman Ibrahim Roble, is participating in the work of the 109th International Labor Conference, the first to be held virtually due to the restrictions caused by COVID-19 pandemic. The 109th sessions of the International Labour Conference is taking place online and will be divided into two segments during the year, the first in June 2021 and the second in November-December 2021. The plenary session began on 7 June with the interventions of the Director General Guy Riders, who presented his report, Working in the Age of COVID, which will be adopted by the conference plenary on 18 June 2021. To this end, the Minister of Labor in charge of formalization and social protection, who took part in the plenary session, delivered a speech today in which he highlighted the response and resilience action plan designed with the social partners during the pandemic, which has enabled thousands of workers and their families to escape distress and insecurity. Accompanied by the Director of Youth, Ms. Qaltun Igi Husma, the Director of the CDC, and Ruqi Hassan, and the technical advisors, the Minister of Youth and Cultures, Dr. Hibo Mumin Asowe began her visit to the Community Development Center, CDC, of Hajidide. After a warm welcome, the head of the center, Mr. Hamade Mohammed Hamad, invited the minister for a guided tours of the various facilities. This visit was also marked by a beautiful presentations of judo games that are particularly popular with young people from the center's neighborhood. Afterwards, a presentation of the program and organization is to respond favorably to the education and entertainment of the youth and not so young was shown. The visit ended with an exchange between the minister and the representative to discuss ways to diversify the program. The Minister of Youth, Dr. Hibo Mumin Asowe, also visited the Community Development Center of the Neighborhood 3, where she was given a warm welcome. A crowd of animators, members, and of the neighborhood council's elected officials and volunteers took part in the welcoming ceremony. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the head of the center, Mr. Nasser Hamdi Said, presented the various cultural and educational activities carried out during the year. During this visit, the minister was able to discuss with the members of the neighborhood councils and those in charge of the CDC the success and improvement to be made. The Minister for Youth and Culture was pleased with the efforts made by the community development centers of the neighborhood 3. The Minister of Youth and Culture, Dr. Hibo Mumin Asowe, visited the development centers of the neighborhood 5, where the Minister of Youth received a warm welcome from the head of the CDC, Mr. Abdallah Taha. The minister was able to learn about the various activities undertaken by the centers. As part of the preparations for the 44th anniversary of independence, the Town Hall, in close collaboration with the transport companies, launched this morning's removal of the vehicles, the collection of stray animals and slaughters of wild animals. Among the removal of the vehicles, they took place on the road from Arta to the former neighborhoods of Progress, but on the axis facing in front of the maternity Dar al-Hanan. Well, before proceeding to this removal, the Djibouti Town Hall, through the media, had warned the owners of these vehicles to remove them quickly. As part of the fight against malaria, a team of technicians from the National Institute of Public Health of Djibouti is carrying out routine activities of sowing larvivorous poison on the gambiaceous types at the level of the large waters reservoirs of the Djibouti Turkish dam at peak 23. The objective of these routine activities is to implant larvivorous fish capable of eliminating mosquito larvae and avoiding any possible multiplications of mosquitoes, which are vectors of infectious disease. The seeding of larvivorous fish is an aqueous environment is a proactive and effective elimination strategy to destroy larval blooms and prevent mosquito multiplication. Indeed, these larvivorous fish are bred by the ENSPD to integrate paddles and dams reservoir to eliminate the risks of larval multiplication and break the mosquito life cycle. The 44th anniversary of the Armed Forces was celebrated in the region of Tajora. The Tajora military camp under the command of Colonel Ali Shahandaoud. This celebration also saw the participation of civil authorities, including the prefect of Tajora, Mr. Hassan Dabali Hassan, the chief of the police and gendarmerie. The anniversary of our armed forces this year is also celebrated in an unprecedented way, organized with a very limited devices, respecting strict security measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic that invaded our countries and the whole. After the salute of the big flag, Colonel Ali Shaham and read in a solemn tones a long speech of the commanders of the General Staff of the Armed Forces.
على الإسلام ومن توفيت فاعتبروه على الإيمان. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
En ce jour du 6 juin 2021.
The 41st anniversary of the Armed Forces was celebrated at Bias military camp in Ali Sabih under the command of Colonel Abdul Wasi' bin Muhammad. The celebration was also attended by the prefect of the region, Mr. Musa Adan Migane, the president of the regional council, Umar Ahmed Wa'is, and the head of the local police and gendarmerie detachment. The anniversary of our armed forces is also being celebrated this year in an unprecedented way. It was organized with a very limited numbers of people and strict security measures due to the COVID-19 that has invaded the whole world. After the salute of the flag, Colonel Abdul Wasi' bin Muhammad read in a solemn tone a long speech by the commanders of the General Staff of the Armed Forces.
Ordre du jour du chef d'état-major général des armées à l'occasion du 44e, mais grâce aussi à la politique éclairée de notre président, son Excellence, M. Ismaïl Omar Guelleh. Notre cher pays restera, Inch'Allah, un modèle de stabilité et de paix, signé le général du corps d'armée, général Zakaria Cheikh Ibrahim.
والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم ارحم شهداءنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجذام والجنون وسيء الأسقام، واجعل بلدنا بلدا آمنا مطمئنا وسائر بلاد المسلمين. آمين آمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد.
The 44th anniversary of the Armed Forces was celebrated at Dumera military camp. This celebration also saw the participation of the head of the Armed Forces, the civil authority, and the chief of the customary chief. The anniversary of our Armed Forces this year is also celebrated in an unprecedented way, organized with a very limited devices, respecting strict security measures due to COVID-19 pandemic that invaded our countries and the whole world. After the salute of the flag, the colonel read a solemn tone, a long speech of the commanders of the General Staff of the Armed Forces.
اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف عنه وأكرم نزله ووسع مدخله واغسله بالماء والثلج والبرد ونقه من الخطايا كما نقيت الثوب الأبيض من الدنس وأبدله دارا خيرا من داره وأهلا خيرا من أهله وزوجا خيرا من زوجه وأدخله الجنة وأعذه من عذاب القبر.
Ordre du jour du chef d'état-major. The 44th anniversary of the Armed Forces was also celebrated at Ali Unek military camp. This celebration also saw the participation of the head of the Armed Forces, the civil authorities, and the customary chief. The anniversary of our Armed Forces this year is also celebrated in an unprecedented way, organized with a very limited devices, respecting strict security measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic that invaded our country and the whole world. After the salute of the flag, Colonel read a solemn tone, a long speech of the commanders of the General Staff of the Armed Forces.
تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون أموات إنك قريب مجيب دعوات وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد فاتح.
Like the other corps and formation of the armed forces, the commemorative ceremony of the 44th anniversary of the creation of the armed forces was held at the President Guled Military School in Holhol under the command of Colonel Muhammad Jama' Qayad. This ceremony, with a very limited numbers of people because of the COVID-19 pandemic, was honored by the presence of the sub-prefect of the southeast of the country, Mr. Mahdi Adan Shirwa, and the representative of the councils of Ali Sabah region, Mr. Musa Miguel, on his arrival. And just after the military honors, the chief of the corps of the military school of Holhol, Colonel Muhammad Jama' Qayad, to proceed with the agenda of the CMGA.
الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين.
اللهم نور مرقدهم وعطر مشهدهم وطيب مضجعهم وعاملهم بما هم أهله. اللهم أجزهم عن الإحسان إحسانا وعن الإساءة عفوا. منازل الصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. اللهم آمين آمين آمين. الفاتحة.
ce jour du 6 juin.
For the international scene, some people thought that criminals were ahead of the police when it came to new technology. Acting together, law enforcement agencies from several countries have just proved the opposite. Hundreds of criminals have been arrested as part of Operation Trojan Shield. The latter was based on the hacking of encrypted application Anom, which is very popular in the organized crime world. Importantly, this application had been secretly developed by the US FBI. Thanks to this operation, described as the most sophisticated in the world by police in several European countries, United States and Australia and New Zealand. Investigators were able to follow the activities of members of the mafia, Asian criminal syndicates, and outlaw motorcycle gang for several months as they exchanged information on drug sales, money laundering activity, and ever assassinations project. Over 200 arrested in Australia alone. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.